The colonel paused, and Mr. Hotchkiss regarded him with increased impatience. The colonel, however, continued, with unchanged deliberation. It concerns a young lady, a beautiful, high-souled creature, sir, who, apart from her personal loveliness, I may say is one of the first families of Missouri and not remotely connected by marriage with one of my boyhood's dearest friends. The latter, I grieve to say, was pure invention of the colonel's, an oratorical addition to the scanty information he had obtained the previous day. The young lady, he continued blandly, enjoys the further distinction of being the object of such attention from you as would make this interview really a confidential matter among friends and relations in past and future. I need not say that the lady I refer to is Miss Zaidee Juno Hooker, only daughter of Elmira Ann Hooker, relict of Jefferson Brown Hooker, formerly of Boone County, Kentucky, and latterly of Pike County, Missouri. The sallow, ascetic hue of Mr. Hotchkiss's face had passed through a livid and then a greenish shade and finally settled into a sullen red. "What's this all about?" he demanded, roughly. The least touch of belligerent fire came into Starbottle's eye, but its bland courtesy did not change. "I believe," he said politely, "I have made myself clear as between gentlemen, though perhaps not as clear as I should to jury." Mr. Hotchkiss was apparently struck with some significance in the lawyer's reply. "I don't know," he said in a lower and more cautious voice, "what you mean by what you call my attentions to anyone, or how it concerns you. I have not exhausted half a dozen words with the person you name. I've never written her a line, nor even called her at the house." He rose with an assumption of ease, pulled down his waistcoat, buttoned his coat, and took up his hat. The colonel did not move. "I believe I have already indicated my meaning in what I have called your attentions," said the colonel blandly, "and given you my concern for speaking as a mutual friend. As to your statement of your relations with Miss Hooker, I may state that it is fully corroborated by the statement of the young lady herself in this very office yesterday." "Then what does this impertinent nonsense mean? Why am I summoned here?" said Hotchkiss furiously. "Because," said the colonel deliberately, "that statement is infamously, yes, damnably to your discredit, sir." Mr. Hotchkiss was here seized by one of those important and inconsistent rages which occasionally betray the habitually cautious and timid man. He caught up the colonel's stick, which was lying on the table. At the same moment the colonel, without any apparent effort, grasped it by the handle. To Mr. Hotchkiss's astonishment, the stick separated in two pieces, leaving the handle and about 2 feet of narrow, glittering steel in the colonel's hand. The man recoiled, dropping the useless fragment. The colonel picked it up, fitting the shining blade in it, clicked the spring, and then rising, with a face of courtesy, yet of unmistakably genuine pain, and even with a slight tremor in his voice, said gravely, "Mr. Hotchkiss, I owe you 1,000 apologies, sir. That a weapon should be drawn by me, even through your own inadvertence, under the sacred protection of my roof and upon an unarmed man. I beg your pardon, sir, and I even withdraw the expressions which provoke that inadvertence. Nor does this apology prevent you from holding me responsible, personally responsible, elsewhere, for an indiscretion committed in behalf of a lady, my client." "Your client? Do you mean you've taken her case? You, the counsel for the ditch company?" said Mr. Hotchkiss in trembling indignation. "Having won your case, sir," said the colonel coolly, "the usages of advocacy do not prevent me from espousing the cause of the weak and unprotected." "We shall see, sir," said Hotchkiss, grasping the handle of the door and backing into the passage. "There are other lawyers who—" "Permit me to see you out," interrupted the colonel, rising politely. "Will be ready to resist the attacks of blackmail," continued Hotchkiss, retreating along the passage. "And then you will be able to repeat your remarks to me in the street," continued the colonel, bowing as he persisted in following his visitor to the door. But here Mr. Hotchkiss quickly slammed it behind him and hurried away. The colonel returned to his office, and sitting down, took a sheet of letter paper bearing the inscription "Starbottle and Stryker, Attorneys and Counselors," and wrote the following lines. Hooker versus Hotchkiss. Dear Madam, having had a visit from the defendant in above, We should be pleased to have an interview with you at 2 p.m. tomorrow. Your obedient servants, Starbottle and Stryker." This he sealed and dispatched by his trusted servant Jim, and then devoted a few moments to reflection. It was the custom of the colonel to act first and justify the action by reason afterwards. He knew that Hotchkiss would at once lay the matter before rival counsel. He knew that they would advise him that Miss Hooker had no case, that she would be non-suited on her own evidence, and he ought not to compromise, but be ready to stand trial. He believed, however, that Hotchkiss feared that exposure, and although his own instincts had been at first against that remedy, he was now instinctively in favor of it. He remembered his own power with the jury. His vanity and his chivalry alike approved of this heroic method. He was bound by the prosaic facts. He had his own theory of the case, which no mere evidence could gainsay. In fact, Mrs. Hooker's own words that he was to tell the story in his own way actually appeared to him an inspiration and a prophecy. Perhaps there was something else, due possibly to the lady's wonderful eyes, of which he had thought much. Yet it was not her simplicity that affected him solely. On the contrary, it was her apparent intelligent reading of the character of her recreant lover, and of his own. Of all the colonel's previous light or serious loves, none had ever before flattered him in that way. And it was this, combined with the respect which he had held for their professional relations, that precluded his having a more familiar knowledge of his client, through serious questioning or playful gallantry. I am not sure it was not part of the charm to have a rustic femme incompromise as a client.